hope for. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. It is truly fantastic software. Kathy and I were actually, while I was attempting to co-teach, she was doing most of the teaching, but helping out with zero period this week. And the kids are excited about it because they can see how they use it. And I actually started using it with my mock trial team. I'm revising mock trial this year. And you can actually send out questionnaires and forms using Google Docs. And so we have a field trip we're doing in a month, and I'm sending up rooming assignments via Google Docs. And so truly good stuff. Next up, we have Ms. Jen Kestenbaum, who's an English teacher at Agoura High School, to talk about a unit she did with her juniors.
Okay, again, my name is Jen Kestenbaum. I'm an English teacher at Agoura High School, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I've been doing in my classroom. But first, I do want to touch on some of the topics that other teachers have brought up. What Lisa was talking about with the gender research and just basically everything that she covered in her presentation, I laugh at because I'm like, well, my juniors are the same exact way. They like to be in small groups. They like to be up and moving. I need to give them brain breaks because they sit there and stare at me like they're comatose sometimes because they just need to be up and moving. And I find that when I give them these breaks, they do so much better in conversation. Also, what Kathy was talking about, the use of technology. I found that in a Socratic seminar that we were doing the other day, where we're talking about The Crucible, written by Arthur Miller, which talks about the Salem witch trials, I asked my kids, well, what does a crucible mean? What is it? They took out their cell phones and they're looking up what crucible means, and it gave them hopefully a whole new meaning of what the actual title of the play is. Because it has little to do with what actually is going on in the play, it's more of just a constant theme. So they were using the technology, and the same with when I write stuff on the board, they take out their cell phones and they take pictures and they have all the information down. They have the questions that I was asking them just right there in front of them when they get home, or they can text it to their friends. We're not scared of it at this point. Also with Google Docs, we have a chance to do peer editing at home now. These kids can write in live time comments on friends' papers, and it tracks who's writing the comments. We can write group essays where they're collaborating on their ideas, all for free, like Kathy was saying. What I do want to focus on is the use of nonfiction, like our gorgeous ladies are talking about, and the study of rhetoric within the classrooms, more specifically with my juniors. I'll talk first a little bit about the use of nonfiction, and this year I focus a lot on bringing in more nonfiction pieces, and I'll just use an example. Like I said before, we're reading The Crucible right now with my junior classes, and I teach regular college prep and also IB English, and our videographer might kill me now for talking about stuff that he's so tired of hearing about, but we've been reading this play on The Crucible, and we've not only been focusing on the actual play itself, we've been focusing on the history behind it. We've been reading nonfiction articles where it talks about the Salem witch trials. We've also been reading articles about social deviance, and we've been talking about, well, who exactly are the deviants within this play? These kids are using psychology, what they're learning in their psychology classes and they're learning in my class, to all talk about the characters within the play itself. So the joy of teaching fiction is now enhanced by bringing in nonfiction. These kids are getting a deeper level of meaning by bringing in nonfiction pieces into the classroom. And I'm knowing that they're getting just so much more out of what I'm telling them when they have more information to back it up. I think they really liked talking about the concept of social deviance, and they questioned it a lot, and they were just brought us with like, well, who says like, what's deviant and what's not? And I was like, they talked for a whole entire class period about what social deviance is and who the heck gets to decide what is deviant and what isn't. And it was such a rewarding experience for me as a teacher to be hearing them using words like social mores and laws and all these things that I never would have heard in my classroom before, but now I'm bringing in these nonfiction pieces. The second thing I want to talk about is the use or the study of rhetoric. For those of you who don't know, the study of rhetoric is the art of persuasive speaking and writing. And I started this last year, but I focused it a lot on this year. And so what my students have been doing is understanding what rhetoric is and how to analyze it. And the art of rhetoric is going to be something that they're going to encounter their entire careers. I'm helping to hopefully prepare them for the 21st century by introducing how to analyze someone's rhetoric. We looked at nonfiction articles, we looked at pictures, we looked at cartoons, and we had to analyze what are the claims, what are the purposes, what evidence is this author bringing in. And they became experts, I hope, on finding the claim and finding the purposes and finding the reasons and finding the evidence. And they were able to determine at the end of each of these articles, well, was it rhetorically successful? And it was funny for me to sit back and just let them discuss it and see that for some students a piece of work was rhetorically successful, and for others it wasn't. And that just speaks to the differences within each of these kids. Their background knowledge is being brought in, and that might make something successful to one and not the other. And while studying rhetoric, I focused a lot on the changes in education, which is what the Model Schools Conference really, I took home from it, I should say. I brought in articles that were challenging my students. I brought in articles that were called American Kids Dumber Than Dirt, that really upset my students. And there was an author from San Francisco State who was telling us that our American kids are going to go nowhere in life. Okay, they have no hope. And I found that my students were getting angry at it. They were questioning it. And I also found that by reading reviews on the movie Waiting for Superman, that our students live in a bubble. And sometimes they have a hard time getting outside of the bubble. And in the conversations that I was listening in, which I kind of just took a step back and let them kind of work through, I found that they have sometimes a little bit of trouble putting themselves in someone else's shoes. Because they have such a good educational experience here, and we're making it better, especially by going to things like model schools. We have a chance to improve their lives, but there's so many schools out there that don't have these opportunities. And my students, for some of them, were never aware of this. They didn't know that there were schools just in Los Angeles itself that were having these trouble, where they have kids who their entire future depends on whether or not they can get into a certain school. They didn't know that. And so by bringing in these articles, I hope that I opened their eyes a little bit, and they were able to really question what's going on. They questioned the use of technology within the classroom. They questioned how prepared we're making them for the 21st century. They didn't really know that we've been using the same methods for the past 50, 60, 70 years in teaching that haven't changed. But they know that the world has changed. And they're even more aware of it now through the study of these articles. And we had such an enriching, probably takes a month and a half of discussion where these students had to really get through these articles. They looked at articles that were saying good things about America. They looked at articles that were saying really bad things. And the kids had to question what was going on. And so that was my hope in coming home with Model Schools, from the Model Schools Conference, was giving these kids a chance to actually look at their education and not just accept what they're being taught, but to actually question it. And I hope that that's what I've been doing with my kids, and I hope they really took a lot away from it. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
In my very biased opinion, I'm going to probably embarrass the next two presenters, but we saved the best for last. As I mentioned earlier, I teach history, and so when my kids come to me with anything more advanced than addition, and say, Mr. Busby, how do I solve this problem? I say, I teach history, and that sounds like math. And I read a lot about how math is important, but Russ Steffens got a chance to go to the conference 2 years ago. Brent Cass got a chance to go this year. And they are both brought in a program which, when kids start talking about a new program for no particular reason, that's a good sign that it's working. And so without any further ado, Russ Steffens is going to start us off talking about I Can Learn.
Big mouth.
He has a big mouth. All right.
One of the things is listening to all this stuff. I got the opportunity to go to Model Schools a summer ago, a year and a half ago. And I was lucky enough to be there. Jason talked earlier about not just the presentations, but the vendors and stuff. Bad knee. That the vendors were there, and they are, and I was able to get there and see a math program in progress called I Can Learn. And last year I explained what that was, but this year, after listening, we're going to exercise the brain here. You guys are actually going to see what a lesson looks like. We're going to go through one of the lessons. That's what I want to throw up here. No one's actually, from Mr. Mizell to Mr. Busby, to all the people that have had to hear me talk about I Can Learn, no one's really seen a lesson. They've seen little pieces and snippets of it, and you're not going to see it all either, but we're going to run through what each kid does. What I would like to do is ask teachers, what would you think about every lesson that you gave? Before every lesson you gave, you knew exactly what every kid knew before you started. So you're not wasting anybody's time. Well, when you get through that, and one of the things that I have never talked, this is new, I was kind of holding this back, and the thing that gets me more excited my second year in, is that actually by the time I deal and teach a kid, I know exactly what they don't know. I'm not wasting their time. I haven't even told him that yet. It's unbelievable. But they have to go through this lesson. That's the key. They go through this lesson. And what I want to do is, before we see it, I want to show you, because we are going to fast forward and skip some parts for brevity. One is they take a pretest, and a pretest asks 10 questions. If the kid answers all 10, they skip the lesson. They get an A for that. and they skip it, we're not going to waste their time. And it doesn't wait for them to do all 10 lessons. As soon as they miss one, they're done. They get kicked into the lesson. Then there's a couple warm-ups. What do you need for, to be successful here? And then it shows the lesson presentations, which can be anywhere from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10 to 11 to 21 videos. And they're all in different lengths and times, and the kids go through that, and they learn it there. For the first time, they're going to learn it there. Not from the teacher, not from the teacher lecturing. After that, they do some independent practice where they're working some problems at their thing. We're going to skip that part. Then they go on to what I think is the critical part of the whole thing. It's how I know what they don't know. They do a little tutor, a couple, 2, 3 problems, and then it throws them on a quiz. Each lesson they do is a quiz. Now, we can't give a quiz and grade a quiz as regular teachers in a traditional classroom by doing that. I can't grade that many quizzes, but the computer not only grades it, it's instant. Kids take a quiz, they get it back. They have to pass it at a certain pace of 70%. They answer all 10 questions, then they get their score. If it's 70% or above, they move on to the next lesson. They do a pretest, they move along. If they don't, it kicks them back into quiz solutions. They get to go and see what they did wrong. I usually let them take the quiz again that time, and at that point, if they don't have it, then they come and see me, and I just go over the problems they don't know. And I can click on my screen, the teacher screen, and it shows me, good, I don't have to deal. They know this part, they know that, good. They don't know this. And I get to teach them right then and there what they don't know. And I'm not dealing with what they do know. They already know that. And then I'd say at about an 80% clip, they go back in, maybe higher. They go back in after I've worked with them and pass the quiz. Pretty much on the first try after that. Enough ado about that. Brent's going to come up because last year we modeled 1 class. This year at Agoura High School, we have 4 1A classes. This is our 3-semester, not 2-semester, 3-semester class. We have 4 of those. I do Indian Hills. Indian Hills is really, really good it's tailor-made for them. The kids work at their own pace. It's great. And we're also now piloting one for the 3rd semester into geometry. Enough ado about that. I want to let you know that this is Juliana Mims. She's the account executive for I Can Learn, the program itself. She's my Vanna White for tonight. And Kathy, get that phone. I'm going to need your help here because this is about a subject that I don't know. It's quantum physics, and there's going to be a lot of questions. I'm kidding. I have no idea about this lesson, what it is, but we're going to miss some on purpose. Okay, and that's way so we can move on. But I'm hoping a kid. This is a student homepage, and without going through all this, they can click on this stuff, and this isn't any of our students, so I don't know how it's set up, so we're not going to do it. It'll tell them where they're at. They need to be at lesson 25, and you're at lesson 19, or you're at lesson 24. This is what all of this tells them, okay? And if I want to leave them a message and I want to do stuff, they can do stuff like that. Mostly they just come here and they hit start. So let's start. We're going to go into a pretest. Try to get the first one right, so Kathy, please help me. And then we'll miss the second one. Again, this would be 10 questions. If you pass all 10, you get to go. You're about to take a pretest that lets them know you have 30 minutes to complete it. Obviously, if you know it, there you go. B. Kath, we want to get this one right, so Kathy's going to answer the first one, and then I'll do the second one, so we want that.